Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning into AMTV Alternative Media Television. I'd like to welcome all you creepy ass white crackers to the program. I hope you don't find that offensive because those are the words according to witness testimony from Chantel, who was on the phone with Trayvon Martin before he was tragically killed and shot by George Zimmerman. A creepy ass white cracker, which I personally find quite offensive as a Caucasian. I mean, let's flip it around for a minute and say I went with a blowhorn out to the city streets of, let's say, Oakland, screaming the N-word. What do you think would happen to me? The counterpoint to that fact, and again, a lot of angry people today, we put out a meme. I put out a meme on our Facebook page, which has an image of Beyonce. You know, she likes to shake her little booty around at the Super Bowl with her Illuminati signs. You know, going to show the Illuminati pyramid. Her and Jay-Z, big Obama supporters. You know, they throw these giant galas and ship on their little bubbly champagne. And Obama likens himself, says that Jay-Z, he reminds him of Jay-Z, reminds him of himself, a former crack dealer. Pretty interesting commentary. And of course, the president also likens himself as if Trayvon Martin was his own son, which incriminated George Zimmerman before he even went into trial. And that is about the most anti-constitutional, anti-freedom, anti-liberty, and a disgrace not just to the American people, but to the American justice system itself, having incriminated George Zimmerman before he even went to trial. It was to stand in front of a jury of his peers. You know, the mainstream liberal biased media and the people of America have been incredibly angry for the past 18 months since this tragic event, and it is a tragedy. It's an absolute tragic event, and my heart goes out to the family, and I pray for Trayvon and his parents and his loved ones that have to endure his tragic loss of a young man, 17 years old, not a boy, but a man. Again, they allow you to drive at 16. You can go fight and die with your parents' permission overseas in Iraq and Afghanistan. You're more than welcome to step on an IED. You know, President Barack Obama has no issue with you going over to fight his wars in the Middle East. But what really got my goat, what gets my goat in general are the comments. You know, when you say creepy ass white cracker, you know, I feel like I should be eating saltine crackers or something right now and get my little hoodie on. I'm going to get into a viral image that is circulating all over the internet courtesy of one of President Barack Obama's former advisors. No big surprise. But personally, I'm offended by that as a white guy, as a Caucasian. And to endorse Trayvon and to support Trayvon is to implicitly support and endorse those comments. Creepy ass white cracker. Creepy ass white cracker. And so we put out a meme today. I put out a meme of Beyonce. Of course, Beyonce calls for a moment of silence during her concert last evening, the Illuminist herself, you know, who's like a billionaire and, you know, likes to wear Illuminati fashion symbols and clothing and these kinds of things and are very much a part of that culture and very much engrossed, deeply engrossed with President Barack Obama himself. So let me show you the picture that seems to have invoked such passion among the Facebook community. And if you got the balls to, you should share it because it's the truth. You know, it's funny. People get scared about sharing the truth. Like, oh, man, Christopher, hey, this is unbelievable here. You know, hey, how dare you say creepy-ass white cracker? I didn't say it. I'm repeating, quote, again, this was presented in a court of law. It's a system and a judicial system that I still believe in. 6 jurors, 6 women, by the way, acquitted George Zimmerman of all charges. Set him free after listening to the evidence from key witnesses like Chantel, who was on the phone with Trayvon before the attack, and corroborating eyewitness account and evidence presented to the jury that indicated and showed that Trayvon was in an attack position on top of George Zimmerman before the fatal shot was tragically fired through the young man's heart. Now, that sixth juror, I've had a lot of people say, Christopher, that sixth juror wasn't black. Wasn't black. Bullshit. Bullshit. I tell you, sixth juror was black. And there are numerous sources to confirm that. Self-identified as black and Hispanic. Black and Hispanic. See the double standard here? You see how the mainstream media pitched George Zimmerman? We put out another meme not too long ago, picture George Zimmerman, you know, looking very Hispanic because he is Hispanic and he's also half white, saying, oh my God, they still think I'm white. You see, the black community, the African American liberal community, I'll say, those that are proponents of white-ass, creepy-ass, cracker-type comments, which I think is insane. I mean, talk about being offended. Is a Caucasian. I couldn't imagine if George Zimmerman was blowhorning the N-word, throughout the streets of Los Angeles or Chicago, where, by the way, teens are dying every single day through inner-city black-on-black African-American gang violence. You know, President Barack Obama's hometown. But you see how it's a double standard where George Zimmerman is a Latino, George Zimmerman is white and Caucasian, when the liberal biased mainstream media wants to make him white to create racial division and a race war. But the sixth juror is Hispanic, not black. You see the double standard? Even though the sixth juror was black, half Hispanic, herself is black Hispanic. That's black, or it's a mix. And this is what is so insane and quite frankly confusing to a lot of people, is that this really isn't about race. I mean, that's the tragedy here, is this really isn't about race at all. I got to take a quick break. I see someone behind me. Give me 1 second, and I'll be right back. We are back. You see, grassroots media, I'm not reading a teleprompter. This is all live. These are real critical thoughts coming from my brain and the synapses within my brain, chemistry working and firing as I deliver this message to you. Of course, there was a report that came out. It was a leaked fabrication of the names and the pilots on the Asiana flight, which turned out to be a disaster, which was reported by the mainstream media, pretty much because it was fabricated and read through a teleprompter system. But back to this meme, and let me show you this meme. Zimmerman is a creepy-ass white cracker. This is what has inspired the rage and passion across Facebook. Here you can see the photo. Let me blow it up here. Zimmerman is a creepy ass white cracker. That is a direct quote by Trayvon Martin himself from corroborating witness who was on the phone with him, Chantel, here in this photo, in this article that you can read for yourself. You know, I'm looking through some of the comments here. Joel says, Trayvon Martin had the opportunity to walk away from a bad situation or act like an adult and change the situation to make it a positive one. But he chose to act like a thug and bash someone's head in the ground. What happened was tragic. Maybe his parents should have done a better job parenting and take some of the blame instead of blaming the world for this loss, etc., etc. And I had several comments saying, you know, Christopher, how dare you? I'll never tune in again. How dare you say these, make up these fabricated lies of blessed Trayvon? Again, none of this is my opinion. This is the actual statement in commentary, a direct quotation from Trayvon himself from a key witness, and evidence that was delivered and supported in a court of law here in the United States of America, which a lot of people just don't like, quite frankly. Just hate America. I mean, let's be honest. President Barack Obama hates America. Hates it. And so do most of the people that voted for him, which makes up, quite frankly, the majority of our population. They hate this country. And that's why when we allow our system to actually work, and in this case it did, and justice was served, and a man was set free and acquitted by 6 jurors who were presented with the evidence. Of course, you weren't presented with the evidence. I wasn't. The jurors were. They were the ones in court throughout the entire process that acquitted him. The American people are still so angrily divided on race that now we have Reverends Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson helping to propel and promote a copycat investigation launched at the federal level against George Zimmerman and his supposed hate crime. And they're making it out to be a civil rights issue. A civil rights issue. That's laughable. That is obvious insanity. That makes me cringe. Again, why aren't Reverend Jesse Jackson and others like Mr. Jealous, who are making this about civil rights, speaking to some of these flagrant, obvious racist comments by Trayvon himself? And why are we being propagandized around this at this given point during Obama's presidency? These are all very important questions that the American people need to ask themselves. Now, there is a super viral image of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who I believe to be a hero and is in my top 3 of people that I've really thought were amazing individuals and leaders throughout history. And if I was alive during the civil rights movement, I would have been behind people like Martin Luther King Jr. because they were fighting for legitimate human rights. And you study this history, and you look at the photos, and let me first show you the photo here, released by a former Obama advisor. Let me show you this if you haven't already seen this. Here you have a picture of MLK, in my opinion, an American hero, who, by the way, was murdered and whacked by the federal government, according to his own family. Here you have this photo, which is going viral around the internet in support of Trayvon and this alleged gross atrocity of an unarmed, they like to repeat that many times in the mainstream media, unarmed infant. In fact, let's not even call him a boy. He was just out of the womb. Maybe he wasn't even out of the womb, he was a zygote. Literally, the sperm had just fertilized the egg. That's how small and much of a child Trayvon was, according to the mainstream media, and unarmed. You know, I heard some great commentary from Stefan Molyneux, who I encourage you to check out. I've had on the show a few times, who was describing and talking to the point how the mainstream media bias around Trayvon was unarmed, and he only had a pack of Skittles and a little glass of iced tea when George Zimmerman, the big bad wolf, decided to kill him because he hated black people. Now, when you think about self-defense, and one of the primary reasons you have a gun in the first place, for self-defense reasons, is to protect yourself from an aggressor and a potential unarmed individual or group, which is exactly what happened and was corroborated from eyewitness testimony according to the trial itself. The evidence. I know you don't want to look at the evidence. That's too hard. Let's not look at the evidence. According to the evidence. But he brings up a good point, Stefan does, and says, you know, do you buy a handgun to protect yourself from a sniper? And it just kind of making it almost a little bit funny in the respect and making the point that you can very easily be killed by somebody that is unarmed with their bare hands or using a blunt object or some kind of blunt force object like concrete, which was the case in George Zimmerman in the Trayvon scuffle, or a group of people unarmed without a weapon. You know, to me, that is what is the most telling part about this case. So you've seen the photo, you've seen the image of Martin Luther King Jr., which I think is a disgrace. I think MLK would roll over in his grave, throw up, barf chunks in his mouth, re-swallow, and then throw up again. If he knew that these scumbags in Washington, former Obama advisors, were likening the civil rights movement and his legitimate movement to the Trayvon white-ass, creepy-ass, white cracker movement, which I personally think is a disgrace and a joke. So let's take a look at this tweet. And I want to see and hear your comments in the comment box as you're viewing this live stream as we speak. And I want to make sure we also get this out and tweet it out and get it out to our Facebook page so that we make sure that everybody is joining this AMTV live broadcast. You can see here, this is from Van Jones, former Obama advisor. Now, following the George Zimmerman verdict, former Obama advisor Van Jones, and people want to tell me this isn't political, tweeted this image displaying Martin Luther King Jr. wearing a hoodie, which spread rapidly across Twitter. The use of hoodies has grown as a sign of support for Trayvon Martin, both throughout the trial and following the verdict. So here's the tweet from Van Jones, who happens to be African American and also formerly connected with President Barack Obama himself. An absolute disgrace. Mr. Van Jones, you should be ashamed of yourself, sir. You know, I would like to hear more about what Martin Luther King's family thinks about this. I know we've had some comments on it, and more than likely there's probably a lot of support for Trayvon Martin and these protests from Martin Luther King's descendants. But personally, I think it's a disgrace because there is a clear difference between the legitimate movement MLK was fighting for in this specific case, which is a dime a dozen, happens every single day across city streets in America. You can look up these statistics yourself at FBI.gov. Violent crime on the decline. Gun-related deaths on the decline have been over the past decade. We confirmed all of this throughout President Barack Obama's gun control pitch over the past 12 months, which thankfully, through your efforts and the efforts of the alternative media, has temporarily been shut down. But of course, President Barack Obama is making comments now suggesting that, you know, if we're to remember Trayvon, well, then we should do something about this gun violence, which, you know, means get rid of all guns. Because why would you want to use a gun for self-defense? I mean, that's insane. That's absolute insanity. And so I find it tragic that pop culture icons like Beyonce and Jay-Z, who are heavily involved and big supporters of President Barack Obama, would call for moments of silence and implicitly support, through their support of Trayvon Martin, these types of specific racial slurs, which is what a white cracker comment is from Trayvon Martin, and support this kind of overt racism in America. Now, of course, I've covered this in length, and I know many of you hate this. You have hated my coverage of Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman from the very beginning, even though we got it 100% right. And I don't get everything right, but in this specific case, hit the nail on the head. And that's not me tooting my own horn or any of that. That's just the truth. And that's just the reality. And quite frankly, that's how I know. That's how I know that I'm right on target. Right on target and have the truth entirely in focus is when it creates this kind of divisiveness and divisiveness among the American people and even our own dedicated, loyal audience. Again, I say many times, this is not a popularity contest for me. This is the truth. I will never dance through hoops of fire. I will never politic. I have seen several individuals, not to name names within the alternative media, that have been dancing around the issue, quite frankly, and they're just playing politics. That's just how a lot of these people are. They're afraid to take a real stand. They're afraid of the masses, afraid of the groundlings, afraid of the Obama administration, and afraid to say anything in an environment where we have a black president and the minority is actually Caucasians now in America, not the other way around. But people are scared. And if you say anything and say, hey, I take offense, like I personally do to a comment calling me a white cracker, if I take personal offense to that, well, then the liberal media is just going to portray me as a Hitler-loving KKK member. I mean, for God's sakes, Chris, you're white. You can't say these kinds of things. Only black people can. Only African Americans. Again, this isn't about race. This is about the inbred, inherent hatred in America that exists, which Obama knows he can play into, key into, foster, and build a fire around to help endorse and support his liberal agenda. For more war, more death, more destruction, more invasions in the Middle East, aka one example, Libya, soon to be, which we are already having a violent civil war in Syria. Recent comments from Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, that Iran is on the race to build a nuclear bomb. Of course, Syria, a gateway to Iran. This is a smokescreen to the NSA scandal, Benghazi Gate, Snowden, the death of Michael Hastings, his alleged murder, the bank bailouts, Fast and Furious through Eric Holder. I'm missing about 15 scandals, so put them in the comment box. Put the scandals down that I missed. I know I missed quite a few. So I just continue with, run that thread for the next couple of minutes. Any scandals that I missed that President Barack Obama has been heavily and directly involved in. President Barack Obama in 2007 specifically saying he wouldn't continue the Bush-era policies of surveillance and wiretapping of American citizens. I mean, you can pull these videos for yourself. Actions speak louder than words. Our politicians promise one thing, do the exact opposite. Pass the NDAA without congressional approval. And in my opinion, we just saw the NDAA in action with Michael Hastings. I mean, hey, he was a journalist onto a big story. Just like Edward Snowden, who thankfully was able to get out of the United States before he could be killed. Still very well may be killed. In fact, they probably have some kind of whacking being run really probably as I deliver this video. They're probably going to do some kind of Godfather-type hit job within the airport before he gets out, because he's got evidence that can be leaked, according to Greenwald, that will ruin the United States government. And again, we don't want to get the truth out. Just like WikiLeaks releasing truth and the civilian casualties and gross atrocities with the war in Iraq and the helicopter footage. We don't want to get the truth out. Because if you get the truth out, America has to deal with the fact that their government is a lying, traitorous piece of crap. And then they have to fully understand that Obama's a murderer. That's tough to do. That's tough for the average Joe Blow on the street to digest, that President Barack Obama kills people for a living. That yes, even a liberal, even a so-called liberal playing into his base, just like George Bush did, killing, whacking, murdering people, falsely invading countries on the pretense of WMDs and weapons of mass destruction, President Barack Obama is doing the same thing. That's tough to deal with. President Barack Obama, a murderer? Man, that's even worse than the birther issue for a lot of these people. Even though it's the truth, it's the reality. I mean, hey, Obama congratulated himself when he murdered Anwar al-Awlaki. That's not my opinion. He did a speech on it. He's like, hey, good news, everybody. I killed Anwar Lawley today. Isn't that fantastic? He died at the Pentagon not too long ago, but now I just killed somebody. Isn't that great, Democrats? Hillary Clinton's like standing next to him like, yeah, wonderful. That's amazing. And these people call themselves Christians. That's pretty funny, isn't it? Lying, murderous, traitorous scumbags. They wiretap your phones and kill people, allegedly. In a lot of people's opinions, even those of the mainstream media, Michael Hastings' wife, Sergeant Biggs, a friend of Michael Hastings. Michael Hastings actually spilled all the beans to an attorney. I don't know who the attorney is. We're trying to find out. Spilled information to the attorney, told him everything before he was whacked. NDAA, in action. You know, liberals tell me, well, Christopher Obama will never use it, so it's okay. That's like saying, you know, well, Hitler's never going to exterminate the Jews, so that's okay for him to build concentration camps. You know, as long as it doesn't affect me. As long as it doesn't affect me. So it really is quite ridiculous for there even to be consideration of a Department of Justice restart and second investigation for a hate crime inquiry in the Zimmerman case. You know, according to FBI records, agents found no evidence that Zimmerman was a racist. This is a fact. And this is why it makes it even more ridiculous. You can see here, after interviewing nearly 36 people in the George Zimmerman murder case, the FBI found no evidence that racial bias was a motivating factor in the shooting of Trayvon Martin. Records were released Thursday. Even the lead detective in the case, Sanford Detective Chris Serino, told agents that he thought Zimmerman profiled Trayvon because of his attire and the circumstances, but not his race. Serino saw Zimmerman as having little hero complex, but not as a racist. And I actually agree with that. I think Zimmerman made a flaw, made a fatal flaw, and a gross mistake, and that is negligence. To follow somebody and not listen to what the 911 operators are necessarily telling you. Of course that was a mistake. But was it based on race? Was it based on his intense hate for the black man? And was this a racist act? Or was it an act of self-defense? Well, according to the jury, it was an act of self-defense, and they couldn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that George Zimmerman was guilty of second-degree murder, which was the charges brought to him by the state. The county state attorney released another collection of evidence in the Zimmerman murder case Thursday, including reports from FBI agents who investigated whether any racial bias was involved in Trayvon's February 26th killing. The evidence includes bank surveillance videos from the day of the killing, crime scene photos, and memos from prosecutors. Among the documents is a note from the prosecutor who said one of the witnesses said her son, a minor, had felt pressured by investigators to say the injured man he saw was wearing a red top. The boy's testimony had been considered key because it backed up Zimmerman's allegation that he, wearing red, was being pummeled. On and on. For those of you that said we were just playing into the mainstream propaganda that there would never be race riots, well, quite frankly, you've been incorrect. You've been absolutely wrong. Let's take a look at the photos here. This is from Mail Online. America gripped by second night of fury over not guilty verdict for neighborhood watchman who shot black teenager armed with only a bag of Skittles. Angry marchers shut down Los Angeles freeway, occupy a busy intersection. Oakland activists burn American flags. Rubber bullets fired into crowds by LA Police Department officers. 7 arrests have been made, etc. You can see the photos here. Some legitimate, peaceful protests, others of a more violent nature, especially in the city of Oakland. We had a mass congregatory protest event in New York City's Times Square. You can see these photos here. You can see this T-shirt says redemption, justice for Trayvon Martin, justice for all white-ass, creepy-ass white cracker-haters, I guess is what that sign should read. You have an African-American lady screaming as another appears to be looking African or mixed race cop trying to detain her. in some fashion. You've got video here, cops in riot gear. And all races, not just African Americans out on the street, but all races carrying Trayvon sign. Here is or at least one of the corroborating pieces that we just happened to Google up. Took me about 2 seconds to do it. There's about 10 sources you can look up for yourself. Witness Trayvon called George Zimmerman a creepy-ass white, kill my neighbor's cracker, according to Rachel Jantel. And people tell me that I or we are making things up regarding this case. Well, not according to the evidence. And again, I know it's tough. It's difficult to look at the evidence. We just want to play into the racism and the hate. You know, I've never seen the country so divided. And people say President Barack Obama, well, he lauded change. And boy, oh boy, did we get it. You know, we got a Rodney King style. Again, Rodney King, totally different event. I mean, we had actual video footage of him being beaten. So, I mean, that was a definite hate crime. We got the footage to prove it. In this case, we don't. So, again, we let the courts decide, and we let the American people decide, and we let 6 jurors, 6 women, one who happened to be black Hispanic, decide, and they acquitted him. But America doesn't like that. We're much more interested in vigilante justice here in the United States. Don't care about the real issues. I mean, we're not bringing and launching investigations against President Barack Obama or the banking cartel or the Federal Reserve or the numerous psychopaths that ripped people off during the 2008 financial crash, people like John Corzine, who walked the streets scot-free and endorsed President Barack Obama's presidential campaigns regularly. We don't launch investigations for those people, but we organize massive protests throughout America over a single individual who was killed among thousands that are killed on an annual basis through black-on-black hate crimes, through white and black hate crimes, Hispanic and polka-dotted hate crimes. It really doesn't matter what color you are. You don't see President Barack Obama likening himself to any of those kids. There was probably like 15 kids that probably died over the past minute here. I just delivered the broadcast, and it's not a story. It's not all over the Drudge Report. It's not all over CNN. Why is this case all over CNN? Why is this case all over MSNBC? Why do the American people care about it so much? Well, it doesn't help when major pop culture icons like Beyonce and Jay-Z have to run their trap, just like President Barack Obama. I mean, honestly, there should be a lawsuit brought against Obama and his administration for making those comments, likening Trayvon to as it was his own son before a trial could take place and Zimmerman could get a fair trial. It is honestly even a mystery to me that Zimmerman got a fair trial, for crying out loud. I mean, the President of the United States said it was like his own son was killed. That is the most anti-constitutional, abrasive, flagrant thing that I possibly can think of coming from a president of the United States. Absolutely disgraceful and also immature and clearly intended to divide and conquer the nation and to create a racist environment here in the United States because it's the last thing President Barack Obama has to stand on. Now, Piers Morgan lands Rachel Jantel interview. That's happening tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Certainly not endorsing Piers Morgan. I really don't like the guy personally or his politics, but should be an interesting interview. Something that a lot of you would probably be interested in tuning into. So this is pretty incredible. Pretty incredible. And I want to know what you think. And we're going to go to the comment section. I'm going to go to the comment section in a bit. And I want you to ask any question at all regarding this case, Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman. I want to hear your opinion. You can ask my opinion, etc. We're going to go to all of that when we get back, and I'm going to be digging into the Snowden case. Where is Snowden today? What's happening with his specific case? Where is he headed? What is Vladimir Putin saying about him? But before I do that, and as we close the initial segment here, before we come back, I just want you to take a look at some of these images, some of these pictures of the real civil rights movement in America. Let me blow up the screen here. this was a real movement. See Martin Luther King, civil rights movement, a photographic history. Martin Luther King would roll over in his grave. Look at these images. I mean, you had separate but equal. What a disgrace. That was a legitimate movement. That was something, and that was amazing leadership from people within this community at the time, including MLK himself. And to liken any of this to this legitimate movement, to liken Trayvon Martin in the George Zimmerman case to this, you can see the people gathered here to listen to MLK, and you remember his speeches, or maybe you've downloaded them on YouTube, his I Have a Dream speech, speeches that literally bring tears to my eyes to this day. You could see his own death coming, his own immediate mortality. Of course, he was gaining too much power, so the federal government, and this is according to his family, murdered him, shot this man, this beautiful man. And you can see all the people gathered here in Washington, D.C., around the Washington Monument, with the Capitol in the background, and behind MLK, the Lincoln Memorial. Somebody that President Barack Obama continues to liken himself to. Liken himself to somebody that is going to unite America when he does the exact opposite. Brings racism, hatred, and tragedy to this country, this great country, and our great people, and makes it a joke, makes fun of it, shits all over the Bill of Rights, our Constitution, individuals like George Zimmerman's right to have and to receive a fair trial. And then when he does get a trial and he's acquitted, helps to incite riots throughout the streets of the USSA, the tyranny state, the new Nazi Germany, the next Hitler in power, maybe the next Antichrist. I'll be right back. Everybody stay tuned. Hold on for just a brief moment. Everybody, I am back as I'm waiting for the comment section to load. Bring that laptop over in a minute. Feel free to ask any question. I want to hear your comments. How do you feel about those comments? How do you feel about being called a white ass, creepy ass cracker? Direct quote from Trayvon Martin, according to corroborating witness testimony on the stand in a court of law. Evidence. What do you think about that? And I noticed over the short, quick break that the NAACP has come out with a public statement regarding this case and this trial in the death of Trayvon Martin as a quote, nothing more than a modern-day lynching. Nothing more than a modern-day lynching. Wow. Wow. It's almost like the NAACP, Reverend Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton have nothing to do. Because, the place is pretty free in America now. It's not like separate but equal anymore. We got a black president. There's not two separate drinking fountains, bathrooms, etc. That it's almost like they just come out of the woodworks now because there's nothing else for them to do. They're like, hey, Bob, what can we do here to get into the public eye again? Well, you know what? Maybe we should quote, this is nothing more than a modern-day lynching. That'll give us some airtime. What do you think, Reverend? Nothing more than a modern-day lynching NAACP convention held just miles from site of George Zimmerman trial. Becomes an unofficial justice for Trayvon rally. It may be mere coincidence that the NAACP's annual convention is being held in Central Florida, but the organization is making the most of it by issuing rallying cries and demanding justice for Trayvon Martin. I'm going to go to your comments here now. Got a laptop here in front of me. Set it up so I can see this. All right, so this is from Stevie Music 2011. Said Z, referring to Zimmerman, stopped pursuing T, Trayvon, walked back towards his truck. T chased him down, then pounded and grounded Z and tried to take Z's gun. T loses. Kill Your TV says, hey, man, I wish we had some music while we're waiting. We're going to have to add that. I don't know about elevator music, though. Elevator music might be a little bit boring. Let's go here. I fear that one day, this is from Mac, the intelligent awake will have died or been killed or imprisoned off, and the nation will be a high-tech slave colony. Well, I think we're already there, to be honest, Mac. I think we already are kind of a high-tech slave nation and economy. And quite frankly, I mean, take a look at the images we've been showing you. I've been showing you over the past 40 minutes or so. There's a lot of sheeple out there. A lot of people in those streets. A lot of people angry. Falling hook, line, and sinker right into Obama's trap. So I kind of think we're already there. I mean, honestly, it's so grotesque and insane. It's times like these I honestly question, why am I even here? Get the hell out of this country. I mean, a bunch of idiots live here. I mean, seriously, re-elect President Barack Obama. Now we're in the streets protesting Trayvon's cracker comments? Sounds pretty insane to me. I mean, we need to let the judicial process take its course, which it just did, and Zimmerman barely got a fair trial and was still acquitted, and and the gross masses are still calling for his death. Like we're going to hang him in a public square or something like that. From Mike the Kid 123 says, U.S. citizens should protest, leave Snowden alone, but wait till this Trayvon crap stops. Digital Hero says, let's all care about some stupid black and white case in court as the NSA spies on everyone and slowly takes all your rights away. Well, yeah, it sounds like you're paying attention. You must be. I also heard, too, I believe, so check me on this, I believe this came from Zimmerman's brother. It came from somebody, because I read this last night, who said, here we are, we've destroyed George Zimmerman's life. He's got to walk around with a bulletproof vest and a disguise on now. And you've got NFL stars saying that he's not going to last longer than a few days once the black community takes care of him. They're pretty much inciting that Zimmerman is going to be murdered. And the commentary was something along the lines, here we are ruining this guy's life when we should be giving him a gold medallion for actually doing what he thought was right and protecting his community and acting in self-defense. So don't take me out of context there. Go look this up for yourself. I believe it came from Zimmerman's brother. Somebody said it. So if I'm wrong about it being his brother, put that into the comment box below. But somebody said that. I want you to think about that. Do you agree with those comments? Do you disagree with that? Should Zimmerman be getting a badge of honor? Or should his life be ruined? You take a look at other famous cases like O.J. Simpson, somebody I think clearly was guilty. Clearly killed his ex-wife and her boyfriend and was running away from the police in his white Bronco and is now in jail. The proof is in the pudding now. Now he's been convicted, lost a civil case and a civil trial, some $30 million, now rots in jail after engaging in criminal activity in Las Vegas. The proof is in the pudding. And I was also listening to Ann Coulter on Fox, who was speaking to the fact that the O.J. Simpson trial had placated America for about a decade up until now. Almost like the African American community got it out of their system. We know O.J. Simpson was guilty, but this wrongs the rights of our oppression throughout history. And I'm not saying there wasn't oppression, there wasn't legitimate movements. Again, I'm a huge fan of Martin Luther King Jr. He's in my top 3 in terms of leadership figures. And if I was around and alive, I would have supported and been behind his movement and the civil rights, the people's movement, the civil rights movement itself. But it was interesting listening to Ann, who gives some pretty scathing commentary. And I know a lot of people just write her off as crazy lunatic Fox commentary, but she's kind of right. Kind of placated the African American community for about a decade, but now it's like, well, we got to, create another riot here over Trayvon because, Jesse Jackson and these other figures within the leadership community need some airtime. So, they need some publicity, for God's sakes. And this is, the perfect time for it. This is from Remy. He says, and I'm assuming it's a he, says, well, I am black and white, and those words do not offend me one bit because they are just words. Things of the world, do not be so concerned with this world because it will be made new. Well, that actually sounds pretty mature of you, and I think a lot of people feel that way where they're not offended. But I like to play the other side of the equation because if it was a white guy or was it George Zimmerman running through the streets with a bullhorn, screaming the N-word, there would be severe outrage within the community, and there should be outrage. But what's amazing to me is there's zero outrage over blatant racist comments by and of that came from the mouth, allegedly, from Trayvon Martin, as confirmed by the evidence delivered in court by the witness who was on the phone with him moments before he was killed. Zero outrage. Nobody, honestly, where is the NWWCP? Advancement for white people, not the KKK or any of those, groups. But who protects Caucasian rights in America? Honestly, today, Caucasians are the minority now in our society. Why is there nobody up in arms over the white-ass, creepy-ass cracker comments is what I want to know. Brian Bomber says people just need to live and let live. We don't need fairy tales to tell us how to live our lives. Let me refresh here. We've got several hundred new comments. 1990 Honda says, hi, Chris. Hey, what's up, 1990 Honda? How you doing? Okay, Mark. Okay, I want to speak to this. Mark 22 says, but Chris, you fell into the trap too when you choose a side of the dividing line. I disagree with that, and I've seen a few of these comments. No, we haven't fallen into the trap. I haven't fallen into the trap. I call it like I see it, and I call it like it is. I called it like it was 18 months ago when I brought this story to the nation's attention, or did my best to do so. I called a quacking duck a duck for what it was. I told you that President Barack Obama was aiming to incite a race war. This was a part of his political agenda. I told you that there would be riots and mass protests in the street. This was created and manufactured by the establishment, liberal, biased media to divide and conquer the American people. And it's exactly what happened. And honestly, I'm not going to harp on this story too long, but I am going to cover it, which is exactly what I'm doing now. And when we're finished covering it, and if there's no new developments, it'll be done. And we'll focus on the real issues. We'll focus on the things that affect your day-to-day livelihood, like the economic collapse that we're living through today, the blowing up of a bubble worse than 2008, and approaching $17 trillion plus national debt, these gross wars overseas, an upcoming war with Syria, a current civil war in Syria that President Barack Obama has been arming the insurgents with weapons, arming Al-Qaeda and its affiliates. You know, comments came from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu out of Israel on Iran. I reported on that earlier. I mean, those are the big stories, but you see how well this is working. And that I do agree with your comment, because the American people have fallen into the trap. I'm doing my best instinctually to try to educate, and I'm not a perfect person. I'm not a genius. I don't have all the answers or anything like that. I just call it like I see it. I assume that's why you tune in. I'm doing my best to educate the American people and the people around the world to the true political motives to this divide and conquer strategy led by the President of the United States, President Barack Obama. I think it's about time that charges be brought against the President of the United States. I mean, impeachment would be a little light. It's time we bring real charges to the presidency, to people like Eric Holder, to people like Hillary Clinton over her engagement of Benghazi. Just an investigation. I mean, what's wrong with an investigation? That's all we're looking for. Hey, if they're cleared by a jury of their peers, fine. Fine, we'll move on. I believe in the judicial system and the justice system. You know, I would rather have 10 guilty people go free than one innocent person serve a life and term prison sentence in federal prison. You know, we've got to allow the system we set up to actually work, which is the problem with America today. I mean, just like in 2008 with the financial markets, when they blow up a bubble and they created all this fake wealth and extorted it from you and stolen from you, at the end of the day, when market forces are trying to work and the supply and demand model is actually in action, and it's saying, look, we're going to crash the market because, again, you've blown up a bubble, which is what the market needs to do to cleanse itself. That's what a market cycle is, peaks and troughs, peaks and valleys. The Obama administration, the Bush administrations, and these people interfere with the market cycle, constantly interfering with the system, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, our judicial system, our economic system, the healthcare system, and not allowing the system to actually work. Let it work. Let the big banks fail. Let them go out of business. Let the American people bring charges against the criminals. Let these people defend themselves in a court of law among a jury of their peers. And if convicted, be convicted. And if acquitted, be acquitted. But the American people don't want that. They want the drama. They want the fun. They want the e-entertainment lifestyle. The Kim K reality show is what they want. That's what they want. And Obama is smart enough, and the people that own Obama are smart enough to know that, which is exactly why they have you eating a big pile of stinking, bloody shit out of their hands. It's got some peanuts scattered around it, too. Little Democratic peanuts. a couple corn chips there. It's kind of disgusting, isn't it? But the American people eating it up. Gotta love the liberals. They've told me this for years now. Chris, they won't use the National Defense Authorization Act. They won't do it. Obama just has it there, you know, like in case he needs to kill somebody. And then good journalists, honest, fantastic journalists at the top of their game and in the top of their field, doing great justice to the American people getting the truth out, like Michael Hastings, are murdered, in my opinion. That's an opinion of a lot of people. His own wife thinks that that may be the case. Sergeant Biggs, a close friend of his that knew him personally, knew and corroborated the FBI, been on to him days before his death, the emails sent, I'm going off the grid, going off the radar, his confidential discussion and leak to an attorney who were looking for that attorney and that specific name. You know, these are the issues that the American people should care about, in my opinion. This is from Lively Report. When you compare this with O.J. and Nicole Brown, I did not see white people out there like this demanding justice for Nicole Brown. Did you know blacks kill whites at twice the rate whites kill blacks? Now, you know, that's a statement. Do I personally know that statistic to be a fact or not? No. In fact, a great resource is FBI.gov crime statistics. And the website's a little convoluted, but I'd actually like to look up some of those specific statistics if we can find them to corroborate whether or not that's the case or not. So maybe if somebody could actually look that up, if you're tuning in now, look it up, throw the link in, and we'll try to look it up here as quickly as we can. And I'll get to that in a moment. This is from the Brandon 86. Jesus? You mean the guy who rose after 3 days and went in the sky as a beam of light like demons? Do you know who wrote that so-called Holy Bible King James Version? LOL. X Dominar says, Chris, why aren't people protesting about the NDAA, NSA, IRS, and those other scandals? Well, because they honestly don't give a shit. I mean, that's the sad reality. American people don't give a shit. They don't care. Again, they want the reality TV show lifestyle. They want the Kim K lifestyle. So I'm looking for a link here. Okay, let me bring this up on my screen. We got some corroborating stats for you. Title of an article that we put out was How Our See Something, Say Something Culture Killed Trayvon. And I'll pull this up on the screen here as well so that you guys can see this. Okay, so this was published on greenwave.com, March 24th, 2012. Go through the report here. Jesse Jackson also added his voice. While some corners of America felt that we were kind of beyond racism, according to Jackson, Barack Obama's victory triggered a tremendous backlash. He apparently believes it is merely because of the color of Obama's skin, not the content of his expenditure, the continuation of foreign adventurism, or the erosion of civil rights, which has led Obama to suffer, etc. I'm looking for the actual statistics here. But the real evidence lies in the black-on-white crime. Say what? The numbers don't lie. In 2010, according to the FBI's Uniform Crime Report statistics, blacks are more than twice as likely to murder a white person, and when understanding the conflation of Hispanic and whites, which is the case in Sanford, the best indicator of violent crime levels in an area is the percent of the population that is black and Hispanic. Writes Ken LaRive, blacks are 39 times more likely to commit a violent crime against whites. So let me repeat that. Blacks are 39 times more likely to commit a violent crime against whites, according to Ken LaRive, and 136 times more likely to commit a robbery. The kicker, the only people who kill more whites than black people are whites themselves, and at a higher rate 12% than blacks. So that's pretty incredible. That's a lot more than than one of our subscribers just mentioned to us. So I don't know about you, but I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm not going to wear a hoodie when I go out anymore. I might be targeted. And obviously I'm joking and being facetious, and that's what honestly kind of gets me. It does get me is that I legitimately care and give a shit about Trayvon Martin. I legitimately do. I give a shit about humanity, about people. I think it is a tragic loss. My heart goes out to his friends and family, and it is a horrible, horrible thing that happened. But again, it's a horrible thing that happens when a young kid, a man or a woman, or a young kid, boy or girl, steps on an IED in Iraq or Afghanistan and blows up into a million pieces. That's a tragedy. The death of Pat Tillman, a tragedy. The unreported, never reported, black on black, violent crime, gang crime in the city streets across America, places like Chicago, and all those people that are dying on a daily basis, a tragedy. Why don't we focus on some of those issues right now? Why aren't we looking at that? And why do we never get the authentic statistics when you can look this stuff up for yourself at the FBI's own website, which shows a declining trend line in the violent crime rate and gun-related deaths on an annual basis over the past decade here in the United States of America, and reported on this extensively throughout much of the gun control debate that has been a byproduct of President Barack Obama's presidency over these last two terms. Spearlit 1987 says an important avenue of research and connection, the Martin case, is his family's affiliation with Masonry. And I don't know if that's true or not. I'd actually like to research that myself. So if you can send information on that, please do. Let me update the comments. Again, we've got several more that have just updated. So let me show all those. Brian Bomber says, I will stick with science and facts. Thank you. Okay. Talks a Lot says, after everything you've said about Trayvon Martin, for you to say you care about him is truly sick. Totally disagree with that. Again, people like me care more about Trayvon Martin than I would probably argue half the people do in the street protesting this case right now. I give a shit about humanity. I care about people. But I also give a shit about this country, right and wrong. And I believe in the Second Amendment, the right to self-defense. And if somebody's being attacked, as the evidence showed in a court of law, and their head is being banged into concrete, and that's being used as a deadly object with the intent to kill, which was the case, and this is what the jury's opinion was, it's why they acquitted him, because they couldn't prove unreasonable doubt, then it is your right. It is your right to fire a shot in self-defense, which is exactly what George Zimmerman did. And by the way, there's no law making it illegal to follow somebody. There is no law saying you can't do that. So if we really want to split hairs here, you need to look at the law. Now, Obama doesn't care about the law, obviously. He bypasses Congress on a regular basis. I'm an American. I care about the law. I would rather have 10 guilty people walk than one innocent person sit a life-term sentence in jail or be executed by the state. And that's how we've set up our system of government. And if you don't like it, I suggest you get the hell out of the United States. Because that's how this country works. It's how it was founded. Just like if you don't like the Second Amendment, I suggest if you want guns banned, get the hell out of our country. It's how it was founded. That is America. If you don't like it, get out. You don't like what the Founding Fathers set up, get out. That's the reality. You know, I realize that this brings up a lot of passion and emotion among people. But again, looking at the facts, you got to believe in the system a little bit. System actually worked, in my opinion, in this case. And it rarely does. Water on Rivers says Thailand and Philippines just moved to the top of my list, talking about getting out of the country for good. Fedorf says, thanks for your efforts, Christopher. Well, thank you. Thanks for getting the word out. You know, I'm getting the information out. That's all I'm doing. You guys are doing the groundwork of sharing the truth. So thank you. Shouldn't be thanking me. See if we can go to a few more comments here before we close out the show. History truths, not true. The Mexican invasion of 1812 was fought over freedom, as was the Revolutionary War. Another comment, Chris, this whole thing is sad, man. This whole thing is sad. Absolutely. Very sad, very tragic. At the end of the day, we did lose a life, and that's something we should all take pause and think about, and think seriously about, and think about things like, how do we prevent violence in America? How do we prevent 39 times more likelihood of blacks committing a violent crime against whites in America? We should ask that. How do we prevent that? How do we make America safe for whites? This is a question we could all ask as well. And I'm being a little bit facetious, but that's a fact. That's the case here. That's truth. Again, you're not going to hear this in the mainstream media. You're only going to hear it here. But it is sad. And I know the majority of you out there do care, as do I, when a human life is lost. But you know what? I give a shit about the kids stepping on IEDs right now, fighting these egregious wars overseas because President Barack Obama has a stick up his ass for the New World Order. I have a beef with that. I have a beef with our financial system raping and pillaging America in 2008 and stealing overtly from the American people. I've got a beef with the Federal Reserve when they continue the Ponzi scheme of printing debt out of thin air and eroding the value of our currency markets in the U.S. dollar here in the United States. I got a beef with it. I got a beef when President Barack Obama launches a war to divide and conquer the country based on race because it's his political agenda. I've got a beef when the president engages in scandals like Benghazi that gets people like Christopher Stevens killed and 3 other Americans, and Hillary Clinton, Rodham, stinker Clinton participates in the scandal, and people like Eric Holder, through their gun running and programs like Fast and Furious, get a local individual killed here out in Arizona. I care when the federal government in the George Bush administration propagandizes the death of Pat Tillman, tells their family and all of America that he died after Al-Qaeda shot him, when that turns out to be a crock and load of shit, that big stinking pile of corn shit I spoke of earlier, and puts the family through hell and high water and overtly lies to sell an unpopular war based on fear and untruths. I've got a beef with that. I've got a beef with the system aimed at destroying this constitutional republic as it was set up by our founding fathers to protect against enemies both foreign and domestic. I got beef. And I got beef when mainstream pop culture icons like Beyonce and Jay-Z hold moments of silence for individuals like Trayvon that make open, blatant, racist statements. I got a white, creepy-ass cracker follow me. I got beef with that when that's not mentioned in the mainstream media. And of course, do people make mistakes? Do they say things sometimes that they don't mean? Do we sin? Do we do these things? Absolutely. But you know what? Give us the clear picture. Give us the full narrative, not just your picked points, so that you can propel a certain story for your own political reasons. Give us both sides of it is what I care about. And for me personally, I love the platform that we've created, that you've created through AMTV and the Alternative Media Television Network, the original alternative media television station. To me, that's awesome because you're passionate. That's what I care about. You can vehemently disagree with me. And you know what? Right on to you. Kudos. Kudos. I like to see some passion. I like to see some balls. If I meet you in person someday, I'd gladly debate you. That to me is what matters, living a life of reason, truth, passion, and vigor, living each day and each second to the fullest. And honestly, what I take away, and I think the takeaway is from the tragedy that was the Trayvon Martin Zimmerman case and the act that ended with the life of a young man at only 17 years old, is that life is short. And we don't know how much time we have left. And we need to live life to the fullest. We need to be the best people we can. And we need to fight injustice. And we need to fight for truth. And we need to step into what is, in my opinion, but not just my opinion, a higher authority's opinion, what is good and righteous, and only that can decide. Not me, not you, not anybody else. Thank you very much for your support. I'm Christopher Green. You've been watching AMTV Live, Alternative Media Television. As always, hard-hitting it in your face. Get it out there. Share this everywhere. Get the rest of our videos out. We've got an awesome AMTV News Report coming up next, and more breaking stories from yours truly. Peace.